Chapter 20. Behind the Curtain. Can I do something for you? Or to you? Failure. I couldn't save Monterey Jack. I couldn't stop Steelhooves from murdering Chief Grimstar. I was letting down my friends and everyone who needed me. The realization of what I had been doing to those closest to me with my damned addiction cut deep, and as much as I wanted to rage at Velvet Remedy, it was my fault that Monterey Jack was dead. I'd killed him with a mint. Actually, I'd killed him with a whole lot of them. I'd been eating them like... Damn it. They actually tasted like candy. How fucking wrong is that? I was physically exhausted and mentally overwhelmed, on the verge of crying. It took me a long time to pull myself up off the floor and make my way back. The basement was huge, cluttered maze-like. I took a wrong turn and found myself in a room of full spark-powered generators, half of which were running, making the whole room seem to throb. A bank of them on the far wall were burnt blackened, their metal skins ruptured. One exploded generator was randomly sparking, making the air taste like lightning. The skeleton of a pony, severed in two by a hunk of metal shrapnel, rested forever on the floor a few yards from them. An engineering schematic on the wall told me these had been the generators which powered the Ministry's mystic defences. They had given their lives saving the building and its inhabitants from the Manhattan Balefire bomb. Well, all except for one very unlucky maintenance pony. I wondered what her, or his, name had been. Did the pony have a family? Did they know what happened? All moot 200 years later. Just one more tear. I backtracked and finally found my way to the exit. As I stepped out through the basement doorway, I was greeted by two 10 Pony Tower security guards. "Little Pip, you need to come with us." I stared at them, then back at the open basement door. Was I being arrested? A weight sunk in my heart. They must think that I was responsible for the disappearance of Chief Grimstar. That was... fast. But then, I'd been running around like a mad pony earlier, and here I was, leaving the scene of the crime. Because today just couldn't get any worse. I nodded to the guards, saying nothing, and let them escort me to the constabulary officers. I'd been here before. I wondered if any of the ponies I had played seductress with in order to get a private audience with Monterey Jack would be there. They wouldn't need to execute me, I would simply die from embarrassment. One thing was for sure, I wasn't going to say anything. I knew what Steelhooves had done, but what would be the use of pointing a hoof? I'd learned that lesson from Monterey Jack. Ponies turned to stare as they marched me through the 10 Pony Tower constabulary. I could hear the whispers that followed in my passing. I recognised a few of the guards on duty, including the one I had sweet-talked into giving me his pencil so I could write down all the ideas that my PTM-filled brain had been devising. I dropped my head, wanting to crawl. I glanced up as we passed several guard ponies, talking with Steelhooves. From the look of things, he was here on his own volition. That did not bode well. "In here, please," one of my escorts demanded. To my surprise, the door he swung open for me wasn't a cell, but to a nice-looking office, panelled in fake wood and full of bookshelves. "Take a seat, and don't wander off. Some pony will be with you shortly." I looked at him in confusion. "Sorry about the delays. We've had a situation with the chief. You're not our first priority today." I was so weary that I sunk onto the little couch in the office and didn't move, waiting for what seemed like hours. I checked my pip buck. It was getting late. I was hungry and confused. There was a small radio on a desk corner. I turned it on, wanting to lose myself in DJ Pony's music. Instead, I was shocked to hear Steelhooves' deep voice rumble from the box. "I'm no hero. If you're looking for a hero, look to Chief Grimstar. He bravely sacrificed himself to save all of you. Only wish I could have saved him." Sheriff Roddingtail had been gathering a veritable army of zombie ponies in the maintenance tunnels surrounding 10 Pony Tower. There was a door in the basement through which the sheriff was going to unleash them upon the innocent residents of this tower. It would have been a slaughter. The talents hired by the chief learned of this threat, but were not pleased with how things went down. When I encountered them, the talents were considerably fewer of them than when Chief Grimstar had hired them, so they neglected to inform the chief of any of this, leaving all of your lives in jeopardy. When I informed the chief, he insisted that we go down and investigate the Talon's story. We found the door and ventured through with the intention of making sure it could not be opened from the outside. We were destroying the terminal that controlled the door access from the maintenance tunnels when the zombie ponies attacked us en masse. Only my armor saved me. I still remember Grimstar's last words, ordering me to flee, close the door, and make sure it was disabled from the inside of the tower as well. He stayed back, fighting to the bitter end, sacrificing himself to give me the time needed to make sure 10 Pony Tower was, and is, safe. I stared at the radio. By Celestia's mane, he was actually going to pull this off, wasn't he? There was so much truth woven into the story that would hold up to investigation, and any pony who questioned it would be questioning the heroism of Chief Grimstar. I knew different, but I was the only one, and it would be my word against his, my very non-citizen word. Not that I would say anything, I'd already made the mistake of going down that path. DJ Pony's voice was now on the radio.
From an interview an hour ago with one of my faithful assistants, the Tamponi Constabulary has confirmed that Steelhorse's tale is true based on a computer entry left by Chief Grimstar.
Oh, wait, was that why he trotted into here? My lockpicking skills seemed virtually unique, but I doubted my ability to hack a terminal was nearly so rare. And if any pony could do it, who was more likely than a knight of the Ministry of Technology? It was just a guess, a suspicion, but it struck me that Steelhorse was covering his bases. Part of me almost admired what he was capable of. Part of me was angry that he was using Homage's broadcast, dedicated to the truth of the wasteland, no matter how bad it hurt, to spread his lies. I turned off the radio. Some pony finally arrived to speak with me. The debonair gentle stone who took his place on the other side of the desk was a mottled brown unicorn with glasses perched on his nose and a scroll for a cutie mark. Sorry to keep you waiting. Let's get down to business, shall we? I nodded glumly. I was no longer curious why I was here. I just wanted to get whatever it was over with so I could go. The unicorn levitated several scrolls onto the desk and opened them. Now, you should be aware that there are expenses that have been accounted for. The cost of the rope used to hang Monterey Jack was 30 bottle caps. Fine stuff, premium made. Cost for the executioner was 25 bottle caps. Then, there are cremation expenses. The unicorn looked over his glasses at me. Unless you rather, of course, just have his body thrown out onto the street for the birds. His tone suggested that would be looked on as uncivilized, but he was still required to give me the option. Cremation itself is 100 bottle caps, plus an additional 57 for the basic box. I stared with dawning comprehension. I was going to have to pay for Monterey Jack's execution? I was dumbfounded. How in Equestria did that make any sense? But, I thought as I sank into depression, it did make sense. It was my fault that he was dead. Why shouldn't I have to pay for it? I listened dispiritedly as the list of fees and expenses and legal charges grew and grew. 1 year's rent for both the cheese shop and his private quarters, amounting to 7,200 bottle caps. Altogether, required expenses and fees amount to a total of 9,047 bottle caps. I stared vacantly for a moment, then nodded. With a sigh, I asked, how long do I have to pay for this? I don't have that kind of money. As a group, we had easily more than double that, but I couldn't feel right about draining such a huge amount of bottle caps from what was Calamity and Velvet Remedy's money as well. Steelhooves' too, although I felt less of a pang about that. The gentle Stoian just blinked at me. Perfect. By their standards, I was poor. I mean, I could probably pay about half of it now. Giving me an odd look, the Stoian informed me. It's already taken out of the accounts. Unfortunately, Monterey Jack didn't have the sufficient funds to pay for it all in caps, so a fair amount of personal property was confiscated for auction in accordance to... He droned off legalese that went completely over my mane. Confusion scrambled my thoughts. So, I didn't have to pay for Monterey Jack's execution? Then why pull me in here to tell me all this? Did they just assume I wanted to know, so I could gloat? Was I legally required to gloat? The gentle Stoian was staring at me. A frown broke across his face. Well, I just lost that bet, he muttered to himself. Then, addressing me, you have no idea why you're here, do you? I shook my head. Monterey Jack was convicted of attempted banditry. You were the pony he tried to rob. Therefore, upon his death, all his property are legally yours. What? Wait, what? It was bad enough when I thought I was being punished. I'd made peace with that, because I deserved no less for my stupidity and failure. Now I was being rewarded for it? No, the world did not get that fucked up. I refused to let it. The Stoian considered me. Honestly, there are a number of ponies who suspected the Monterey Jack's confession might have been from the magic of your own horn than the weight of his conscience. He informed me. I remembered the whispering as I passed by. Of course they did. Any pony who knew about this twisted bit of legalese would suspect me. Even I hadn't been able to comprehend why Monterey Jack had confessed until I talked with him privately. The legal Stoian continued. Personally, I'd laid good caps that this was some sort of plot cooked up between you and Monterey Jack. Again, he frowned. Clearly not. I started at that. What? He died? What kind of plan would that have been? The Stoian shrugged. We all know that Monterey Jack hadn't been right after his wife died. After Clarinet was killed, I'm all they have left. Clarinet, right? I asked, and the legal Stoian nodded. He mentioned his wife. What happened to her? There's a rumour that there is an untouched stable somewhere in Fetlock. A few months back, they were trying to find it. Never did. Nobody has. My heart sank. It was absurd to feel guilty for having found Stable 29 myself, wasn't it? She was killed by a manticore. According to Monterey Jack, he killed the thing, but not before it had stung them both and torn her right up bad. Poor fellow only had enough anti-venom for one, and she insisted he use it on himself. With her wounds, according to Monterey, she probably wouldn't have made it, even if he had given it to her. The stallion shook his head. Of course, that's just how Monterey told it, but I've never known the stallion to lie before. Sweet, merciful Celestia. The legal stallion cleared his throat and turned back to the documents in front of him. Returning to the matter at our hooves, even after fees and deductions, you are still left with the private quarters, the deed and business license to the shop, and a modest amount of home furnishings. Of course, there are two matters which must be attended to. This was so wrong. I couldn't be gaining property from Monterey's tragedy. I couldn't accept this. I didn't deserve this. First, of course, is the simple matter of fact that you are not a citizen of Tempone Tower, and as such, you are not permitted to operate a business within the tower. Normally, it takes several years to earn citizenship, but with the legal standing of these properties, if you start an application now, you could possibly achieve citizenship within little more of a year. He looked over his glasses, fixing me with a stare. Still, it is this business's recommendation that you sell off the deed and business rights to the shop to some mayor or gentle colt who is a citizen. Make yourself a tidy little sum to be done with it. I nodded. I wondered if Homage had any use for an ex-cheese shop. Second is the matter of Monterey Jack's children. My ears shot up. What was this? Who are legally allowed to remain in the private quarters until the end of the month. So, while you do legally own the property, I'm afraid you won't be able to kick them out until the first of... I felt like I'd been hit by a piano. By the twisted legal fuckery of Tempone Tower, I was the one bucking Monterey Jack's fillies and colts into the deadly wasteland. I felt I was seeing behind the curtain. Monterey Jack's execution made me, the heroine his children worshipped, into the pony stealing their home from them after their father just died. The ultimate buck when they're down. Unless, of course, I did something about it. Exactly like I'd already done. I'd taken care of them, even before this trap had snapped shut. I looked up at the stallion as a new feeling burned away my depression. Anger. He played me! I screamed at the walls of my suite, telekinetically overturning all of my beds, my eyes burning with tears, my heart pounded with rage. He set me up! I made the blankets tornado about the room. I was a goody four-shoes filly he knew he could manipulate, and he was right! I stomped on all my hooves. The blanket soared at the window and rebounded off of the glass. I hated Monterey Jack. I wanted him dead, but he already was dead, and I wasn't some pony who could change her mind and take my frustrations out on his children. He was so right about me. So instead, I took my fury out of my room and was thankful that none of my companions were around to see me do it. It was too much. The shame of my addiction, the pain of how I'd hurt my friends, the betrayal of Velvet Remedy's actions, and now Monterey Jack's four-hoofed fucking me from beyond the grave. I hurled one of my saddlebags against the wall. If levitation could have any real force behind it, I probably would have punched a hole in the room. As it was, the saddlebag just clanked against the wall, opening and spilling its contents. A lifetime's worth of party time Mentors rained down on the floor, the stash from Pinkie Pie's safe. I stared at the pile of tins, frozen in place. It took only a moment to transfer all my rage and sorrow onto the drugs. Before I knew it, I was in the bathroom, dumping tin after tin into the toilet water, cursing them and myself for everything we had done to my life together. Flush. There went a month's worth. Flush. There went dozens more. I was throwing away countless bottle caps worth of them, and good riddance. They would never have the chance to hurt any pony else. Flush. There went what I allowed myself to become dependent on. Flush. What I'd let come between me and the ponies who were closer to me than any family had ever been. I was crying so hard, I could barely see what I was doing, but I didn't need to. Flush. 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 The last tin of party time Mentors floated in front of me, hovering over the toilet, open. I just had to tilt it and flush. Easiest thing in the world. Telekinetic child's play. A tilt and a flush. The tin hovered there, not tilting. The last tin. For all the damage they had done, that I had let them do, party time Mentors had saved my life, and the lives of my friends, more than once. Should I keep just one tin? Just in case? But if I took even one more, I could become addicted again. It only took one the first time, and I couldn't do that to myself. I wasn't Monterey Jack. I wasn't willing to screw myself over like that. The tin started to tip. But what if that mental clarity was the only thing that could save my friends? What if it was Calamity's life on the line, or Velvet Remedies, or Steel Hooves? Wouldn't they be worth the sacrifice of myself? Yes. Yes, they would. The tin leveled and began floating back towards me. But could I do that to them? Put them all through it all again? And wouldn't it be betrayal to even keep one tin? The tin stopped, floating above the lip of the toilet bowl. Lil Pip? Hamaja's voice startled me from my bathroom doorway. My magic imploded, dropping the tin into the toilet, metal case and all. I looked at her, startled, eyes red and puffy, knowing I looked like a completely ugly mess. Hamaj stepped into the bathroom, looking peacefully and elegant in her dress. I cringed back, not wanting to accidentally touch it with my filthy body. She didn't let me get away. She grabbed me, pulling me against her breast. I couldn't contain myself anymore, and broke into open weeping. I heard the metal tin as Hamaj floated it out of the water and dropped it into the pile with all the empty others. Flush. At some point, Hamaj nudged me from my suite and up to the Athenaeum where she lived. She played soft music and stayed close to me, leaving DJ Pony's broadcast on a newsless loop of songs. How long until this makes the news cycle? I asked warily, as the sun was beginning to set. Hamaj gave me a gentle but reproachful look. Toaster repair pony kicks addiction? More at the top of the hour? The pretty grey unicorn gave me a nudge with her nose. Really? I don't think that's really something for the airwaves, do you? I smiled gratefully at her. Let me cook you something to eat, Hamaj said before she dared leave my side. I realised how badly I was starving. I hadn't eaten for the better part of 2 days. Hamaj put to shame the restaurants of Ten Pony Tower with their woven banana puree and whatnot. Simple, delicious cooking, and she didn't mind cooking more when I finished off everything and was still hungry. After dinner, I was feeling tired and emotionally drained, not to mention very full, but I now had enough energy to help her clean up. Where did you learn to cook like that? I asked, wishing we had someone with even half her skills travelling with us. I was sorely tempted to suggest she join us, and not just for her food, but I knew she was needed here. All of the equestrian wasteland depended on DJ Pony. My delinquent youth, she hinted with a wink. I pressed her with a hoof, and she elaborated. I really was the assistant of the last DJ Pony. That's how I took up the mantle when he fell ill. I was the only one who knew him. The magic voice spell's been passed down for at least 5 DJ Ponies, so the wasteland never knows when there's been a change. I nodded, having suspected as much. I spent several years after getting my cutie mark, running around the Manhattan ruins and beyond with Joke Blue, a close friend. The friend, I realised, that she had mentioned before. The area between here and Philadelphia wasn't as deadly as it is now. I hunted for recordings and memory orbs to give to DJ Pony, in the hopes that they would have new music or useful news for the broadcasts. Did other errands for DJ Pony, earn my way into the tower, learned how to survive along the way. Cooking, maintenance, a lot of practice hacking computers and getting into locked doors and safes. I thought of all the hacking and lockpicking I had done, driven largely by curiosity and a need to explore and to know, even if what I learned didn't mean anything, like keeping the memory orb was an acknowledgement of and a tribute to the past. Joke Blue was the one who knew a way around weapons and had the skill to disarm traps. Hamaj trailed off as a clearly painful memory hit her. Do you want to talk about it? Hamaj smiled, a tear in her eye. Most traps. Some cruel bastard rigged up a baby carriage with explosives, used the corpse of a newborn colt and a recording of a baby crying to lure victims in. I cringed horrified. By the time she was close enough to realise the baby was dead, it was too late to run. She tried to disarm it, but... The dear unicorn's voice broke off, choked. Now it was my turn to hold Hamaj. I stretched out on Hamaj's bed as she gave me a massage. Either she had learned a lot from our visit to the spa, or she had practice. Either way, it was wonderful. If I was a cat, I would have been purring. I felt her press against me as she leaned close to whisper in my ear. I know you're under doctor's orders to relax and not exert yourself. You listen about as well as most of his patients. I nodded, not wanting to really talk about that, or really about anything. What she was doing with her hooves was divine. She was pressing them in circles against the back of my legs and at the base of my rump. Not as skilled as the professional spa ponies, maybe, but unspeakably more delightful because it was Hamaj doing it. So, I won't apologise for helping you break him further. I had no idea what she was. Oh, hello! I gasped as I felt her tongue someplace I'd only imagined it before. Pleasure burst through my body. And she was just getting started. This was definitely going to qualify as strenuous activity. I sat up, startled, my gaze drawn to the dark window. Beside me, Hamaj stirred in the bed, opening an eye as she magically shifted the covers. "Little Pip?" she asked questioningly in her sleep. I told her I thought I'd seen a green flash outside the window. It reminded me of the flash I'd noticed in the fog nearly a week ago. "Probably just a balefire phoenix," Hamaj dismissed, nuzzling close. "There are several of them in Manhattan." "Yeah," I nodded, "but I think this one has been following us." We spent the next morning together. Hamaj left the bed long enough to cook us breakfast, and then again a couple hours later to poke around in the emergency broadcast station above us. The news this time included a retelling of my brave and daring rescue of Blackwing's talons, including congratulations from DJ Pony on once again stomping 2 eggs under one hoof. Apparently I had taken out 3 alicorns single-hoofedly by blowing up a raider compound. I buried my head under the sheets. It shouldn't have surprised me. In fact, I would have been surprised if Calamity hadn't given her express permission to lay out my hooves. Hamaj had proven she really did enjoy making me squirm every way she could. She was gone for the better part of an hour, leaving me to my thoughts. When she returned, I reluctantly decided to broach an uncomfortable topic, the black opal. "That thing?" she asked, immediately knowing what I was talking about. I expected her to ask why I wanted it, but instead, "How'd you know I had one of those?" I bit my lip. An acquaintance wants me to procure it." I looked away, then back into her eyes. I was very tempted to tell the pony to just fuck off, but I figured I would ask. "Please, feel free to say no. I don't want anything to come between us right now. Or, really, ever." Hamaj regarded me for a painful moment, then smirked. The only thing that's come between us for the last hour has been sweat, and even I had to attend to business, as much as I wanted to slack off. I'm not going to begrudge you doing the same." I breathed a sigh of relief. "And yes, you can have it." She caught my eyes with an earnest gaze. "I have a gift for you too, but the black opal, think of it as down payment. I have a quest for you I want to hire you for." My eyes widened in surprise. "Anything?" She laughed. "You might not say that after I tell you what it is, but you and your friends, you're planning to head towards Philadelphia, aren't you?" The laughter in her voice died as she spoke the name. I nodded firmly. I'm still convinced that something is escalating in the Equestrian wasteland. Something involving Red Eye and the Alicorns. I know they've been around for quite a while. I told her, long enough for Steelhorse to become known to the monsters as the mighty Alicorn Hunter, sarcastically at least, questioning my theory. The Alicorns have been around for a long time, right? But I'm guessing they've become a lot more common? Hamaj considered that. "Hadn't even heard of them 10 years ago. Now they're all over the place in Canterlot. And this year, I've noticed groups of them showing up in Manhattan too." I nodded again. "When I uncover what's going on, DJ Pony will be the first to know. I promised." "And all of Equestria will know soon after," Hamaj swore. "Although, I might get a foreleg up on you." I suspected the innuendo was intentional. "If you complete this not-so-little task for me, you remember that bank of blank screens back in the EBS?" I had taken note of them when she first allowed me inside the MAS EBS and let me look around. I told her so. "Those are the feeds from Philadelphia Tower. Red Eyes has taken control of that tower, or at least the 3% of the tower that I normally have access to, and locked me out of it. If you're going that way, I want you to attach an override to the mainframe in the tower station that will allow DJ Pony to finally have eyes in that horrible place. Red Eyes operated long enough in the shadows." I put a hoof down, although stomping a pillow didn't have nearly the effect. "Agreed." Hamaj pulled down the picture of Splendid Valley, revealing a wall safe with a door made of thickly armoured glass. It opened for her magic with a click. There were 3 items inside, 2 of which she floated out, giving to me. The first was the black opal. I gazed at the item full of memories the Watcher wanted so badly. "I want to give you this as a gift," Hamaj said, with a soft smile and a warm but insistent voice as she floated out the brightly pink statuette of a very familiar pony. I'd never seen Pinkie Pie look so young and so alive. I half expected the statuette to jump up, animated by the sheer energy in her expression, and start bouncing around the room. This, I realised, was the real Pinkie Pie. Twilight's Pinkie Pie. In comparison, the mirror I'd seen in the memory seemed like a shadow. "It was a gift given to me from the previous DJ Pony, who got it from the other one before him. I'm told it was given to the original DJ Pony, Vinyl Scratch, by the Mirror of the Ministry of Morale herself." The figurine gave off such an aura of unbridled happiness that I couldn't imagine any pony's morale sagging around her. "It has served me well, and now I want to give it to you." I looked at Hamaj, feeling a startled reluctance. I couldn't. This was an heirloom. It was.
I know what you've been through, and I know she went through it too. You beat it. She didn't. I want you to have this as a reminder, as something to look at anytime you feel the urge to bite down another mental.
I swallowed hard and nodded solemnly, understanding the gravity of this gift. I reached out with my magic, wrapping the little pinkie pie in a telekinetic sheath, and immediately felt a jolt. Everything became clearer. My body became alive. It was more than a little like biting into a mental, but it tasted like candy apples and cupcake frosting. What did? Part of my mind insisted. It wasn't like I just put anything into my mouth. Between the Twilight statuette and Pinkie Pie, I felt almost like I was on Mentors without them, only cleaner, better, more wholesome. I turned the statuette around to read the base. It didn't match the others. Of course it wouldn't match the others. Awareness! It was under E! I felt joyous and heartbroken at the same time. The statuette was a reminder, both of what I had done wrong and of the cost had I not been pulled from the abyss by my friends. A sorrowful acknowledgement of the damage I had done and now needed to repair, and a message telling me that I had the strength not to do it again. And, perhaps most of all, a keepsake from Homage, letting me know that she understood my weakness with acceptance and forgiveness. Thank you, Homage. This means more than you could ever know. I floated it into my saddlebag, which Homage had apparently floated up here with us while I was too emotionally out of it to notice, opening the flap to the pouch, which held 3 other statuettes. I took a piece of cloth and tied Pinkie Pie next to Twilight. Now, they could be together again. It was silly, but it just felt right. As Homage closed the safe, I took notice of the last item mounted inside the safe. It was some sort of magical energy pistol, but not of any make I had ever seen, and with a grip that wouldn't fit in any pony's mouth. Curiosity sparked. I asked Homage about it.
Long story, she told me. One night, Joe Blue and I were poking our hoods around Fetlock, trying to find a stable we'd heard rumours about, when there was a strange explosion that lit up the clouds above. At first, we thought it was thunder, then all sorts of debris started raining out of the sky. Chunks of the strangest sky wagon you ever laid your eyes on. We took cover in burned out passenger wagon. When it was over, I found that thing amongst the rubble.
Homage chuckled.
Okay, maybe not that long of a story.
What is it?
Nastiest magical energy gun the Equestrian Wasteland has ever seen, to my knowledge. One shot from that thing will turn whatever you hit into vapour, and not like the magical energy weapons you've seen, which do that only once in a blue moon, every single time.
Homage actually sounded scared of the gun.
I believe you could kill a dragon with one shot for that thing.
And with those words, so did I. Where did it come from? I wondered aloud. The idea that there were ponies, the Pegasi maybe, with weapons that devastating, chilled me tail to forehoofs.
Joe Blue figured there was some sort of flying tank that the Pegasi were experimenting with that blew up on them. Me?
Homage swallowed.
I know I'm being foolish, but I can't help but think it fell a lot higher than that.
Higher? I had the strange mental image of items falling to Equestria from the moon, emptying from Nightmare Moon's toy chest. Homage looked a bit embarrassed.
You'll laugh.
I promised I wouldn't, and resolved not to, no matter how hard it was. The beautifully sexy grey unicorn took a moment to gather her thoughts, then starting cautiously.
I once met a zebra.
That wasn't what I expected her to say at all. My ears shot up. I leaned forward.
They don't have the same relationship to the sky that we do. Obviously, since they have no Pegasi. But it's more than that. Before the apocalypse, we ponies had always safely looked to the sky with a sense of joy and safety. We saw the sun, guided through the sky by Celestia during the day, and the moon, Luna's charge, keeping an eye on us during the night. Princess Celestia and Luna were our benevolent rulers, and even though most ponies never met them personally, the sun and the moon were symbols of their kind presence everywhere and to every pony in Equestria.
I felt my body leaning closer, wanting to catch every word of this. I'd never heard Celestia and Luna spoken of this way.
When they perished in the apocalypse, the Pegasi closed off the sky, stealing the sun and the moon from us. We turned them into deities to keep them with us always. Even those underground in the stable seemed to do so, a sort of parallel evolution.
What she was saying was almost blasphemous, but I bucked away to the desire to admonish her, leaning precariously closer to hear. Homage had a perspective I wanted to hear, even if I probably would not have listened to it from any pony else. She made me wonder, ask questions. For instance, would this explain why Calamity did not believe in the goddesses? Why atheism is a Pegasus trait? Unlike us, they had never lost the embrace of the sun and the moon.
The zebras, though, they cringe from the sky.
Homage said. The statement was something I would have expected from a propaganda poster, not a pony who had learned this directly from a zebra. But I knew Homage, and it would not be like her to speak objective truth as she knew it.
The zebras look up and see the stars staring down at us from a great black emptiness, and the stars, they know, are not benevolent.
I leaned further, tipped over, and fell on my face. Hamaj stopped, covering a chuckle with her hoof. When I'd gotten back up, probably looking as sheepish as I felt, she continued.
There's an intelligence up there, the zebras believe, from the stars themselves. The stars burn with cold, malicious fire. No number of them could warm the night sky. They wish ill on our world, and sometimes they will act, not against us directly, but to enable us to harm and ruin ourselves.
I opened my muzzle, the suggestion that the zebras were a bit batty dying on my lips. Yes, it sounded insane. But didn't we have legends that suggested the same? I recalled the story of the mare on the moon, the real version, not that stallion on the moon nonsense. The stars will aid in her escape.
In particular, they tell of four malevolent stars with hearts of cruelty and chaos, which yearn to taste our pain and destruction, wrought by our own hooves.
With a grimace, Hamaj added,
If there's any truth to the zebra mythology, I'd guess we've given them quite the banquet.
4 stars helping destroy Equestria. Now why did that sound familiar? Hamaj shrugged off the eerie atmosphere that had settled in the room by her tale.
Anyway, like I said, foolish. Joe Blue was probably right. Some Pegasus experiment that blew up in their faces.
Cautiously, Hamaj at my side, I lowered my horn towards the black opal. If I was going to give this to Watcher, I wanted to know what it was first. It was only reluctantly that I touched the opal with my magic and let it take Hamaj and her Athenium away from me. I felt strangely wrong. We're in a darkened hallway, wide and elaborately decorated, walking towards a brightly lit room with a decorative, curtained partition hiding half of it. There were 4 ponies walking in front of me, a 5th leading them, the mares of the ministries. The first pony I recognised was Pinkie Pie. While every other pony was walking sedately through the hall, she was bouncing like a fan filly on her way to her idol's next performance. The pony was a little younger than I'd seen her before. The candy cane look was still going strong though. I felt a pang of deep embarrassment as my gaze fell on the lead pony, the beautiful white unicorn I had fantasized about, and the pony I was riding just wouldn't stop staring. Celestia's solar flaring mare heat. The creature I was riding wasn't a pony, and he was definitely and unbearably a he. Was as big as a stallion. I felt things that were not my hooves at the end of my legs, and wings folded to my back, and a tail.
Spike,
Fluttershy asked timidly, turning around to look at me.
Doesn't that hurt?
My attention was drawn to something tiny and metal squeezing my head. The Recollector, I assumed. It did not seem to be designed for whatever I was. I opened my mouth, which felt all wrong, and answered.
Nah, barely feel a thing. Besides, Rarity wanted a memory of this.
She could have worn it herself.
Twilight Sparkle muttered under her breath from directly in front of me. I saw my eyes go once against the white unicorn with the perfect purple mane. She didn't seem to hear it, being engaged in conversation with the pony I knew to be Applejack. The orange pony with the 3-apple cutie mark looked a little younger and not as weary as she had at Pinkie Pie's last party.
I sure hope this had nothing to do with that thing we talked about,
Applejack was saying with nervous caution.
Oh darling, I gave that project up ages ago.
Rarity replied with graceful dictation.
Oh.
The orange pony sighed with clear relief.
Good.
As we approached, we walked across a fancy carpet woven with gemstones. I felt a cold shock as the creature I was riding stepped over it. Twilight Sparkle had stopped just ahead and turned her eye to the carpet as Rarity and Applejack talked, but her attention was drawn by Rarity, loudly clearing her throat. Fluidly, Rarity shifted the subject, speaking up to address all 4 of the ponies she was leading.
Now, this is just the first design, but I think you'll all be impressed. Always thrilled to see one of your designs, Rarity.
Twilight Sparkle encouraged. Rarity smiled with business-like thankfulness.
And this is just a light suit, not the fully powered version.
She turned to Applejack and smiled demurely.
And I do want to make it clear that I'm not trying to step on your hooves here. This armor isn't as strong as your steel ranger suits and doesn't offer quite the protection.
Then what's the point?
Applejack interrupted.
I don't see the use in creating armor that's less protective.
The group had reached the ending of the hallway. There was a large mirror to the one side of the room, and the other was filled with sewing machines, bolts of cloth, and dress ponies. Designs and schematics covered the walls. At Rarity's motion, they stopped, each turning her attention towards the petition. Except for my alien ride, who only had eyes for the white unicorn.
Well, because there is more to an outfit than just how well it stops bullets, of course.
Applejack looked ready to disagree, strongly, but bit back her comment.
Okay, Rainbow Dash, Rarity called out. They're ready for you.
Around the curtain partition stepped the shadow out of a nightmare. A blue Pegasus pony was encased in a black, insectoid carapace, with only the front of her muzzle and the underside of her wings showing. Her tail was hidden with a scorpion-like sheath with a vicious, barbed stinger. The ebony suit of armor was sleek and wicked. Yellow-orange protective goggles with bug-like compound eye pattern completed the look. Built into the sides of the suit were antennae-like protrusions. The crystals that tipped those magical energy weapons shimmered with shifting rainbow light. The reactions of the other ponies were immediate. Eee! Whoa, Nelly!
That looks demonic. Oh, Dashy, you look scary.
The creature I was riding turned to watch Rarity suddenly take off.
Fluttershy, come back. It's only Rainbow Dash, dear.
We turned back in time to see Rainbow Dash push up the goggles with one armored hoof. Her eyes narrowed, a smirk running across her muzzle as she lowered her body into a menacing battle stance in front of the mirror. She growled menacingly, the armor making her look positively sinister.
Oh yeah,
She said,
this is cool.
Reality reasserted itself, leaving me feeling very strange. It was good to be back in my own hooves. I didn't ever want to be that thing again. Steelhooves approached me as I trotted across 10 Pony Tower's monorail station. You're headed to meet that Sprite Bot friend of yours, right? I nodded, eyeing the armoured concealed warrior. Watcher, he said, surprising me. You know Watcher? I blurted out, then mentally bucked myself in the head. I had to remember to start actually asking Steelhooves questions. I know of Watcher. Steelhooves intoned. You don't live as long as we have without crossing each other's wake. It took me a moment to pass what he had said, and then I nodded. So, Watcher really has been around that long. Who is Watcher, and what is she, or he, or it, doing? Who? That I couldn't tell you. Steelhooves lifted a foreleg, looking at it. Watcher lets ponies know less about Watcher than I let them know about me, not without good reason. He put his hoof down. As for what, Watcher has a habit of finding ponies with who are... I wasn't aware I was staring at him until Steelhooves returned the stare. Watcher finds ponies who are better ponies, and sets them on a path to find others, to create teams of friends. I found myself feeling nervous. I didn't like looking at my adventures from the outside like that. And then? Well, most of the time, they disappear, or end up dead. That was not comforting. Steelhooves stayed behind at the station, as I trotted out alone on the Celestia line. I didn't have far to go. The monorail curved around a ruined building, 10 Pony Tower disappearing from my sight, and there was Watcher, the Sprite Bot floating silently, waiting. I have it, I said flatly. Thank you, little Pip. I knew I could trust you. And the Sprite Bot has a compartment for spare batteries. If you could just... No. The Sprite Bot floated silently for a moment. Huh? Watcher sounded perplexed. Trust goes two ways, right? I challenged. Well, yes. I relayed your message, just like you asked, before you got the black opal. I nodded. Made sense, but not what I was after. Not now. I felt a fierce determination set in. Answer's still no. No? You got it. But you're not going to give it to me? Oh, I'm going to give it to you, I said forcibly. In person. Watcher fell silent again. This time, I didn't wait for a response. You talk a lot about virtues and friendship. Well, friends don't run away every time a conversation turns personal. You can't have friends if you hide behind robots and never let any pony see the real you. I snorted. Hell, even Steelhooves does better than you do. You want this? I want to meet you. Why? Because I want to know if you're actually my friend, or if you're just playing me too. Watcher bobbed silently a moment longer. I wondered just how much the stranger behind the curtain wanted this black opal, with the interesting but seemingly insignificant memory. Then, just as I was convinced that Watcher would tell me to go jump off the monorail, the toneless mechanical voice said, Fine. I blinked. It was the response I wanted, but... You're right, little Pip. I heard a beat from my foreleg. I've uploaded my location to your Pip-Buck. I'll see you soon. There was a burst of static, and the Sprite Bot floated away on a drum solo. I lifted my leg to look at my Pip-Buck. There was an icon on my Equestria map, far, far away from Manhattan, in the middle of nowhere. It would take weeks to travel there on hoof. But if Watcher thought that would dissuade me, or even delay me, then Watcher was wrong. I'd spent one more night in Ten Pony Tower with Homage, after which, sadly, it was time to leave. Our first stop was Fetlock. Calamity spent several hours underneath the Sky Bandit, installing the flux regulator and making sure everything was in working order. By the time he was done, it was getting rapidly dark. "I got great news, ponies," he said as he crawled out, looking greasy. "We all got ourselves transportation." Velvet Remedy, Steelhooves and I stomped in thunderous applause. "Now, this beauty is powered off an array of spark batteries, and the last 2 centuries ain't been so kind, so we'll have to swap them out pretty regularly to keep her running."
Wait!
Velvet Remedy said with alarm.
Do you mean this death trap's ability to stay afloat behind you could cut out at any moment?
Calamity looked at her almost sympathetically. "Nah, she'll start to sag first, become harder to steer. We'll have plenty of warning." And, I assured Velvet Remedy, if that happens, I think my telekinesis is strong enough by now to keep us going long enough to land safely. There was no way I could fit that much of a prolonged period, not enough to travel anywhere at least, but I was completely confident that I could keep us aloft, even if the spark batteries died and Calamity fell asleep. For a few minutes. The others began to gather inside the Sky Bandit. Already, Velvet Remedy was cleaning it with her magic and discussing how to decorate. Neither of the boys seemed inclined to participate. I floated out a spoon and a can of sweet potatoes, opening it. I was hungry again, and I intended to eat lunch as I planned the next 3 moves. With the Sky Bandit, we'd be on Watcher's doorstep in less than 2 days. "Oh, little Pip!" Calamity called out. "Are you gonna hang out there in the rain?" I paused, a spoonful of sweet potatoes lifted halfway to my mouth. "What? It's not..." Boom! Thunder cracked directly overhead, and water came down, as if some pony had turned on a giant faucet directly above me. I was soaked in an instant, my hair sagging over my face. The can filled with water, floating chunks of sweet potato out onto the ground. Leave it to the Pegasus pony to know. Tossing aside the can, now full of mostly water, I galloped into the shelter of the passenger wagon. Calamity and Velvet Remedy took shelter behind Steelhooves as I shook hard, flinging water everywhere. There was a beautiful, piercing cry, and the Balefire Phoenix swooped in out of the rain through a shattered window. It landed on the seat next to Velvet Remedy, whose eyes went wide. She let out a squeal of delight. "You've named her Pyolite," Steelhooves asked, echoing my own thoughts as Velvet Remedy fed the bird before curling up under a blanket. We'd been travelling through the air for a day now. Ever since the cloudburst had ended, the Balefire Phoenix had remained with us, or more precisely, with Velvet Remedy. I personally found the name a little morbid. It made me wonder about my friend. We took turns sleeping and watching, passing around my binoculars. So far, nothing had shot at us. By now, we had a good idea where we were headed. It was hard to miss the giant mountain jutting up over Equestria like one of those spire towers. Once Steelhooves was certain Velvet Remedy was deep asleep, he stepped over to me and whispered in my ear, "You should persuade her to spend less time in that memory orb." I looked over to Velvet Remedy. In the last 16 hours, she disappeared into the Fluttershy memory twice. It was like she had an addiction of her own. "That's not a good memory." Steelhooves rumbled, surprising me. I looked at him, wondering how a non-unicorn could know what the memory was. As if reading my thoughts, he answered bemusedly. I asked her. "Oh," I felt like face-hoofing. "What's wrong with that memory?" "Fluttershy wasn't like the others. Rainbow Dash wanted to win the war. Applejack just wanted to protect other ponies, especially after Big Macintosh died. Twilight Sparkle wanted to please the princesses, especially Celestia." Steelhooves intoned. "But Fluttershy wanted the war to end. The memory is the moment she put her whole ministry to that purpose of finding a way to end the conflict. And she did." I felt a shudder. In a world where not everyone is sane, it is the height of insanity to believe you could create a weapon so devastating, so horrible, that no one could dare use it. Oh no. I looked at Velvet Remedy as she slept. The same urge that made me discard the memory orb from Horseshoe Tower returned, grown in order of magnitude. She loved Fluttershy, modelled herself after the sweet, shy yellow Pegasus pony. She couldn't ever learn this. "Wait," I said slowly. "You said no one." His odd word choice reminded me of my first conversation with Watcher. Steelhooves answered dreadfully. "Perhaps the only thing more insane than believing such a weapon would bring peace is creating such a weapon, and then giving it to both sides." Steelhooves turned to me behind his helmet's visor. "That memory is the beginning of the end of the world. Ultimately, Fluttershy killed us all." We were circling the mountain, pushing upwards. It was night, and Calamity was taking the ascent slow as I guided him with my Pitbuck's map. "Alright," he called back. I was afraid of this. Looks like your watcher friend lives high enough above this peak to be above the cloud level. We could be okay, but, well, it ain't safe traveling above the clouds. At least nowhere there's civilization above. Every pony was awake, as was Firelight. We all nodded, readying ourselves. I had no idea what to expect when we pushed through the cloud cover, but I doubted it would be a cheerful, welcoming party with smiles and muffins. Calamity flapped his wings, carrying us upward into the cloud curtain. It was like being plunged into a slightly damp fog. All I could see of the rust-coloured Pegasus pulling us through the sky was a hint of his orange tail. A moment later, the Sky Bandit burst up through the cloud curtain, and the night sky expanded infinitely around us, filled with evil stars. A beautiful full moon hung in the sky behind the mountain peak, silhouetting it like a vertical rip in the universe. Velvet Remedy let out an awe-filled, "Whoa." Firelight gave a musical cry. The jaws of vertigo clamped down around me. My legs felt weak, my knees giving out. Irrational panic told me that I would somehow be sucked out of one of the windows and fall endlessly up through space. Maybe one of the stars would get me. I clutched the side of the passenger wagon, looking down at the clouds. That was much better, and just as beautiful. The clouds were laced with silver from the moonlight, glowing with a gentle, calming light. My eyes, it was under E, spotted a glint of metal on one of the cliffs. I asked Calamity to pull us closer. I'd expected it was Watcher, or, at least, another sprite bot, but instead, it was an audio recorder. I floated it into the Sky Bandit. "This had better not be from Watcher," I said, starting to feel a touch pissed. "I don't think so," Calamity said from in front of the wagon. I slipped the audio recorder away, looking out to spy what he saw. I kicked on my eyes forward sparkle. Just in time too, according to my pip-buck, I'd found Dragon Cave.
I think your friend sent us here to get us eaten.
Velvet Remedy said aloud, staring at the huge, dark opening. The Sky Bandit lay parked on the cliff behind us. Steelhorse was helping Calamity out of the pulling harness. "The pip-buck's data is over 200 years old," I assured her nervously. "So, it was a dragon's cave 200 years ago. Any pony could live in there now. Well, any pony with wings, anyway." A freed Calamity trotted up to join us. "Well, y'all plan on waiting outside till the sun comes up?" Then, just in case we were, "I don't recommend it." Velvet Remedy shook her head.
Of course not. Little Pip, you go first.
"Oh, thanks a lot." I shot her a look.
Well, Watcher is your friend.
That remained to be seen. I took a step forward. There was a heavy thud from inside. Something moved in the darkness, coming closer. Something big.
Ursa Majors don't grow wings, do they?
Velvet Remedy asked nervously, making me want to buck her hard. I was frightened enough already. A dragon poked his head out of the cave. A huge, gigantic, fully adult dragon who could easily eat 2 ponies in one bite, even if one of them was Steelhooves. 3, if 2 of them were Homage and myself.
"Hello, little Pip. I'm Spike."
The dragon said in a voice that was neither as terrifying nor booming as I'd expected.
"And don't worry, I'm not going to eat you."
Footnote, level up. New perk, Pathfinder. Travel time to remote locations in the Equestrian Wasteland is reduced by 25%. The drain on the Sky Bandit spark batteries is likewise reduced. Quest perk added, Pony Sutra. You're experienced in the art of giving and receiving physical pleasure. You are more likely to have sexual encounters with specific characters.